Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paperboy, evening TV. You miss your old familiar friends, but waiting just around the bend. Everywhere you look, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, there's a look of somebody who needs you. When you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, everywhere you look.
Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week, in honor of the late Bob Saget, I am discussing the hit 90s sitcom Full House. And a quick side note, though, if you listened to my previous episode, at the end of that episode I did tease that I would be discussing Hell of a Boss. I still will be, however, as of the recording of this particular episode, the final episode of season 1 of Hell of a Boss is not out yet. So once it premieres, I will be discussing that series, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I thought I would discuss Full House in tribute to Bob Saget, who tragically passed away suddenly after he had done what would turn out to be his last stand-up routine in Florida. So tragic, his sudden passing, but then seeing the outpouring of loving tributes to him from his fans, from people who knew him, and of course in particular the cast of Full House, and how they said that they played a family on screen and they became a family off screen. And here we are now 35 years later from when the show first premiered, and so tragic of his sudden passing. But to honor him, just to talk about this series that he was a part of course, he was the patriarch of the squeaky clean Danny Tanner, ironically with him, like he himself, having his raunchy comedic tone and everything like that. So I'm sure you can look up clips if you're not familiar with his own unique comedic style. So rest in peace, Bob Saget, and just to honor his memory, just to reflect on this series. And first off, of course, this show is extremely cheesy. There's no getting around that. And I never really watched it as a kid. I always thought it was just a dumb sitcom, really. It never piqued my interest. I only started getting into the show, I want to say when I was in middle school or maybe high school. I don't know exactly when I started watching the show on a regular basis, but all I know is that it used to be on all the time on ABC Family and then also Nick at Night. So it's as if you couldn't really escape the show. You couldn't get away from it, so might as well watch it. And the reason really I started watching is because I had seen a lot of movies and some shows here and there starring Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, who of course starred as little baby Michelle on this series. And obviously I'm sure you're aware too that they were absolutely huge in the 90s, starring in so many TV movies and so many shows then as they got older, like once they finished Full House. And then of course Full House itself was so even panned by critics at the time, and yet it was still a hit sitcom, so people were watching it, and it did run for 8 seasons, a total of 192 episodes. That's huge. And then of course in 2016 we got the Netflix revival Fuller House. As I'm recording this, I haven't finished it. I did watch it when it had first aired. I binged the entire first season when it first premiered on Netflix back in 2016. And I think I have a season or 2 left before I am finished with the series. So I'm going to have to finish watching it at some point because it does a good job of paying tribute to the original series, but also making it its own thing within a new generation, with DJ raising her children. And so the premise of Full House, of course, is Danny Tanner, a widower, raising his 3 girls alone, but then his brother-in-law, Jesse Katsopoulos, and his best friend, Joey Gladstone, move in with him. So then there were comparisons early on of comparing it to 3 men and a baby, because in particular with baby Michelle. But then as the series grew, then more cast members, of course, Lori Loughlin, and just to touch on that briefly, the whole scandal with Lori Loughlin from a few years ago with the college admissions scandal. Regardless, though, she is still part of the legacy of this show as Aunt Becky. And then, of course, there's Scott Weinger, who plays Steve, DJ's on again, off again boyfriend. He was her boyfriend for a while and then they broke up at the end of the series. But then he comes back in the final episode as her prom date. It was just like an impromptu thing and it was very cute though. And also, spoiler alert for Fuller House, in case you're, don't want to be spoiled, that they do end up getting married, which is very cute. So DJ and Steve, they were soulmates all along. And also, I definitely mentioned this when I discussed Aladdin, that when I was watching Full House on a more regular basis, I remember my mom once saying, "That's Aladdin's voice." And I was like, "What, really?" And then sure enough, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right, it is Steve, DJ's boyfriend, Scott Weinger, of course, voice of Aladdin, which is turning 30 this year. Crazy." So that's too funny. So for this show, for me personally, I started out not liking it, just kind of thinking it was a dumb sitcom, and then I ended up genuinely enjoying it, and I'm pretty sure I've seen every single episode of the show throughout the years. I haven't seen this show in a long time now, but just reflecting on it now, it's a really sweet show, and what I liked about it is that they've tackled a lot of heavy issues as well, in addition to also, of course, kind of the slapstick humor and just like the silly things of these three dudes really raising these three girls on their own in a way. That's how it always was, because even Joey, he never ended up getting married in Full House anyway. I know in Fuller House he's married and has kids, and Becky and Uncle Jesse are still together, of course, which is sweet. And also, I know in Fuller House, they ended up adopting another baby, which is cute for Becky and Uncle Jesse. And I keep saying Uncle Jesse. He's definitely my favorite character, of course, played by John Stamos, who is quite handsome. And they have such a great friendship because in the show, it's his sister who had passed, and then, of course, Danny, who had lost his wife. And that's really tragic to think. And so then also, when I've been seeing all of these tributes to Bob Saget, Andrea Barber, who played Kimmy Gibbler, she posted a really sweet video of Bob giving a lovely speech. I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. Check her Instagram and you can find the video, because he just gives this really heartfelt speech, really emotional speech, basically saying how this show will live on in perpetuity, and it's so amazing, the work they've done, and that he feels like, that's if like they're his own children, he couldn't be prouder. And then also he peppers in some funny jokes and funny things like that, mentioning the wife, because they never explicitly said how the mom died. And it is sad to think for DJ in particular that for her mom to have died, that, and then also in Fuller House, her husband has died. It's the same exact premise of a single parent raising their three children alone. So then, well, not alone though, I shouldn't say that, because then in Fuller House, it's all about really DJ, Stephanie, played by Jodie Sweetin. I think in the reboot, I will say, in my opinion, I like Stephanie the most in that series in particular. But also Andrea Barber as Kimmy Gibbler is so great in both series, really, but especially I think in the reboot too, because it's just like she really just owns like the silliness of the character, but it's cute seeing them as parents, and then DJ raising her three sons. And, it's just really cute. Of course, it's the same thing. It's cheesy, but also with Fuller House, I like that it has this self-awareness and kind of poking fun here and there, even about like how white the original series was, like just things like that, But then again, with the original series, I liked how it tackled a lot of more serious issues. Like, what comes to mind for me, one is when, in an earlier season, when DJ was doing this program with the elderly, and then one of the guys she was taking care of, I guess, like as I don't know, not a caretaker, but just like helping out with like the elderly. And then he keeps saying, "Oh, Gloria," and then like basically saying that he has dementia, and it's just kind of a scary and sad thing. Another one that comes to mind is when Stephanie suffers from separation anxiety after an earthquake or something, because they live in San Francisco. And that's like an iconic thing too, seeing like the house in San Francisco. And I believe people were leaving flowers and stuff for the late Bob Saget there as well. But with Stephanie like being scared of losing Danny or something, losing the dad. And also it should be mentioned that Bob Saget wasn't originally cast as Danny. It was first a different actor, and then they had shot the pilot, and then once he was available, they reshot the pilot with Bob Saget. And it's sweet, though, seeing the love that John Stamos in particular has for Bob Saget, and also Dave Coulier, that the three of them truly are brothers, and it's just so sad, But I know there was, early on in the pandemic, too, the cast did like a little quick video of, like, with the title like the opening sequence of Full House and them just all like doing their own like quarantine things. And so Bob Saget joking how he's become Danny Tanner, like cleaning every surface and everything. So that's the thing with Danny Tanner, his main like character trait, being a clean freak, but then also a truly loving dad, and apparently like just loves hugs. And apparently that was true of Bob himself too. So that's just so sweet, like a really just wonderful, warm person who loved giving hugs and never went out, like always would tell people how much he loves them. So that's so sweet. And some other serious moments in Full House, though. I remember also like later on, they would deal stuff like with, in particular with DJ being a teenager and also with Stephanie becoming a teenager. I remember then they had that girl Gia, who does show up in the reboot as well, or reboot, I guess, or sequel series, whatever you want to call it. But the girl Gia being like kind of a bad influence on Stephanie with like smoking, and then at one point they get into a car accident. I think that's the episode when like the parents are just getting obsessed with like playing a video game, so they're missing out on all this stuff happening with the kids. So it's kind of crazy. And that's one thing. So for me with this show, they did a good job of just balancing kids being kids and then the adults dealing like the tribulations of growing up as kids, and then the adults with their own things that they have to worry about too, with taking care of the kids and, you know, running a house and career. Because then when Becky comes into the show, it's when Danny is hosting, like he's a host of Wake Up San Francisco, and then Becky becomes his co-host, and then she and Jesse fall in love. And then when they eventually have kids, little Nikki and Alex, so cute, the twins. I also love, I'm trying to remember, so then I know they had for Danny, they had the more, like, he had some love interests here and there. And then the most serious love interest was Vicky, who also shows up in the reboot as well. Like, they had a lot of great, like, callbacks in the reboot, too. And that's really sad, too, because they were going to get married and everything. I think he proposes to her, if I recall correctly, when they're in Disney World. And that's a fun episode, too, because then they have at one point Steve dressed up as Aladdin, so it's kind of like, you know, because he literally was the voice of Aladdin, so that was cute too. But they were going to get married, Danny and Vicky, and then I remember the episode when they do like the quiz show as couples, and it's DJ and Steve, and then like Danny, and then since Vicky can't show up because I think she's an anchor or moving to Chicago or something. And then Becky and Jesse, of course. And then Jesse doesn't like that Becky knows his every thought. And then he's like, oh, your every thought, your every desire. Actually, wait, maybe it doesn't sound so bad. And then with Danny, since Vicky's not there, and then like just some random woman is helping, like it's just like pretending to be a couple with him, and she somehow knows every single answer, and they end up winning. And then Joey's the one that is hosting it, and then like he wants like them to fight because that's apparently makes good ratings. And then like when DJ and Steve kiss, and then Joey's like, boy, the fur is really flying. But at the end of that episode, Danny and Vicky break up because Vicky says how you can move with me, and he says I can't without my family. And then like they want to plan the rest of their lives together, but then that's not going to work if they're going in separate places. And so then that's when they break up. It's very sad, but they had a really loving relationship. And of course, the other thing to note about this show is the sheer amount of classic catchphrases. Every character has a catchphrase. Actually, does Danny have a catchphrase? Well, besides giving hugs, that's not a catchphrase though, but you got Joey with cut it out with like the gesture too. And then you got Jesse with have mercy, of course. And then you have Michelle, like had the most. She had you got it, dude, and you're in big trouble, mister, and I think other stuff too. Those were like the big ones. And then of course Stephanie with how rude, and DJ with oh my Lanta. So goodness. And then I know in Fuller House they tried to do like catchphrases as well, in particular with what's the kids' names? I don't remember now. Like the oldest son, and then the middle son, and the young son. And then the middle son I know would say like holy chalupas, like that was his catchphrase. Kimmy, I'm trying to think if she ever had a catchphrase, but she was just always like kind of the annoying friend, because she's DJ's best friend, but then she was always annoying for Danny. She would tease him all the time, like, oh, Mr. T. But they had a nice relationship too, which is so funny. I do remember too that episode, like when she gets, like when they're teenagers and she gets drunk and DJ has to be like the responsible one and like take her keys. So like again, dealing with more serious stuff. I remember the episode when DJ kind of develops an eating disorder, body dysmorphia, and not eating right. Like, that was a scary one. I remember also there's an episode about domestic violence with Stephanie's classmate and how staying silent, that's not the right thing to do in situations like that. I remember the episode when Jesse's grandfather dies, and then it's just a really sad thing, and then saying it's okay to cry. And there's one episode in particular, like one cheesy, funny episode that my sister and I always loved, is the episode with Joey. I don't even know if it's Danny or Joey's girlfriend, but like her son, Rusty, he like plays a trick by writing a love letter to GJ from the Paperboy, and then everyone thinks it's from someone else. Like, Jesse thinks that either Danny or Joey wrote it to Becky, and then like Danny thinks it was from someone like Becky or something, and then like Stephanie thinks it's from Rusty. It's like, oh god, he's in love with me, ew. And Michelle's saying, I got to learn to read, like and then like they're at their family picnic, and then like they all think it's from someone else, and then like it's just like silly and like a dumb sitcom-y thing, but stuff like that is funny. And then like as Danny's giving a speech, and he's like, I gotta figure out what to do about this love letter, and then like one by one they find out the truth. It's like, I thought you wrote this, what letter? Like, it's just so silly and ridiculous.
So, to make a long story short, let's just sit back, although be careful there's no backs on your chairs, and relax and enjoy some fun quality time together.
Daddy, can I take this love letter off my hand now?
Michelle, where'd you get this letter?
Daddy gave it to me.
So you sent this letter to Rebecca?
Hey, Becky gave that letter to me.
What?
Wait a minute. You gave me this letter first. Joey, don't just sit there. You know you wrote this letter to me.
What letter?
That's the letter my Jessie sent to me.
Yeah, you're Jesse.
I got that letter from Rusty. He's in love with me.
No way! I love DJ and she loves me.
Who are you people and where's my real family?
I do not love you.
Hold it. Everybody just knock it off. Now, somebody wrote that letter and I want to know who it is right now.
I know who.
You do? Who?
It was Rusty.
She's lying.
Rusty?
Okay, I'm lying. I wanted DJ to think it was a love letter from the Paperboy.
The little rat.
So you didn't know?
You didn't write that letter.
You thought that my dad loved you?
Pretty funny, huh? I'm glad y'all can take a joke. You all can take a joke, can't you?
You're in big trouble, mister.
Come here,
Rusty, don't run away from me, young man.
So, like, with all, again, like the silly sitcom things. Also, I remember an episode where, like, a scene where Joey is sitting there at the table and like doing what's like a mantra thing or like a meditation tape, and it's like, I am at peace, and then whatever, and then meanwhile I think it's Stephanie crashes the car into the kitchen and he has no idea, and then like cement starts filling the kitchen. Maybe it was DJ, I don't remember now exactly, but just like ridiculous things like that. I remember there was an episode with a donkey. Michelle sells lemonade and then like buys the donkey for exactly the amount of money that she had made or something. So there's just a donkey in the kitchen. And I remember an episode too where they're teasing Danny for being such a clean freak, but then they're saying, but that's like, they feel bad about teasing him, but then realizing that's why they love him, because that makes him who he is, stuff like that. I remember later on then DJ, I'm sorry I'm just jumping around, I'm just recalling random things from this show, I don't know, but DJ then when she was dating at one point, there were two guys into her, it was like Nelson and like that Viper guy, both attractive in their own ways. She had some, good looking dudes, and then of course she ends up with neither of them. A classic like love triangle in a sitcom, but it's too funny. And I know in the very first episode they're singing like, baby let me be your loving teddy bear, put a chain around my neck, leave me anywhere, oh let me be your teddy bear. And they recreated that in the pilot of the Fuller House series, so that was cute too. A lot of like cute callbacks in Fuller House from what I can remember anyway, because I haven't seen that in a few years too, and I have to finish it like I said. And it's just, a sweet show. Overall, it's a sweet show dealing with things like, again, more serious things, but also like just sitcom-y trope things. I remember then when Becky and Jesse bring home the twins and they mix them up like with the little booties. They don't know which one's which, so then they just match up the little ink footprints to like see which one is which then. And then the last episode I know was when Michelle gets amnesia and then GJ was getting ready for her prom and Stephanie was mad at Michelle and they were all hurting because of Michelle and they were saying like a part of us was hurting because you weren't yourself. And then it ends with like them saying we'll always be together, we'll always look out for each other just like we always have. And then Danny says just like we always will.
Kimmy, Michelle got her memory back.
She lost her memory? Oh yeah, I forgot. Hey Deej, by the way, Dwayne's cousin couldn't make it.
What? You mean I'm not going to the prom?
Don't worry, I scrounged up another date for you.
I'm afraid to ask.
Come on, Deeves, let's get going. I don't want to miss the buffet.
Steve!
I missed you, Deej.
I missed you so much.
How you doing?
Hey, everybody. You guys are missing each other. How you doing? I heard you had a pretty tough week. How you feeling, Michelle?
I'm feeling better. How out of it was I?
Well, you were pretty out of it. I mean, you were here, sweetheart, but it was like part of you was missing. So it was like part of all of us was missing. But we stuck it out and we got through it.
Just like we always do.
Just like we always will.
That just kind of sums up the beauty of this loving family. And that's just so sweet. So it's like saying like he was America's dad, Danny Tanner. So it's so sweet. So that's, I think, just a fitting tribute for Bob Saget himself. And when you're lost out there and you're all alone, the light is waiting to carry you home everywhere you look. And with that, that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to visit storytellingsaga.com, and as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next episode is going to be amazing because I will be discussing happy endings. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paperboy, the evening TV. Everybody eventually